Greetings and welcome, and happy 2024. Today I am going to discuss the future of my collection, specifically my baseball collection. The last 3 years, I would say I have achieved a focus in my collection that had been lacking in my previous collecting years, which has allowed me to purchase some cards I really never thought I'd be able to own. And as those cards were added to my collection, the next thought I would have is, what's next? And I guess I got tired of asking myself that question early in the year of 2023. So last year, I really began to think, what is the finish line of my collection? What does the end look like? And I attempted to map it out. If you're familiar with my channel, I'm sure you know I collect baseball, basketball, and football, and I dabble in hockey and soccer. So I started combining everything into one, and that didn't work out for me. So I pivoted and thought, what would be the top 100 cards I would want for my collection? The problem with that thinking was that there were a lot more than 100 cards between the 5 sports that I wanted or still needed. So what worked best for me was coming up with 100 cards of each sport that I wanted to pursue. And I'm going to discuss baseball here first because that's what I have finished. I'm still working on thinking about what my basketball and football collection want to be. And my fourth category is combining hockey, soccer, boxing, horse racing, and whatever else into one category. So to map it out, the first thing I did was to think of my grail card of each sport. The one card that I could realistically own someday if I planned well enough. And for baseball, it was the T206 Ty Cobb Greenback. And from there, I started to think about sets and players. I started to look at all the different sets that I could possibly think of and started looking at those cards. I love the Cracker Jack set and have almost bought a couple at different times. But currently, I do not own one. By doing this exercise, I have figured out that the 1914 Miller Huggins would be the Cracker Jack card that would fit best with what I want in my collection to be. This way, I'm not spending hundreds of dollars like on a Zach Wheat Cracker Jack that I would like, but would probably ultimately take me down a different road and chip away at the focus I've been trying to find. For players, I would think of guys who I didn't have yet in my collection, or guys that were in my collection, but I wanted more of. Then I would look up every card that I could find of them during their playing era. And like an example would be, I don't have an Eddie Collins card. And I've been looking to add him for a while. But which one do I want to add? Well, the city of Indianapolis is a big part of my life. And there's a 1916 Indianapolis Brewing Company Eddie Collins. That Eddie Collins is the perfect card for my collection. Would I love to have a 33 Goudey of Collins? Yeah, I would. But my hope is to not buy the Goudey so I have the money for something that truly represents who I am. Most importantly, with every card that I put onto this list, I ask myself, is this something that would truly help finish my collection? And if the answer is no, but it's just a cool card that I want, then the card did not get added. I'm a budget collector, and for me to be able to afford some of these cards that I have to stop buying the good deals I find that I may like, but ultimately doesn't move me any closer to my goal. I wanted to have the list accomplished before the National of last year, so I had a better guide on what and, more importantly, what not to buy. Especially when you're surrounded by an overwhelmingly amount of cards, it's very easy to get sidetracked and buy something that isn't a perfect fit. I was very close to buying a T206 Cy Young last year. the one where the glove shows. But I look back at my list, and I know I went a lot into detail of which T206 cards I wanted to add, and Cy Young wasn't on the list. I walked away and I saved that money. Now that money I saved that I would have spent on Cy Young is now going towards my #1 basketball card that I want to buy. If I would have bought that Cy Young, I would have liked it, but it would have been a lot of money for something that didn't really fit into what I'm trying to accomplish. And now I'm closer to getting my #1 Grail basketball card. My goals this year aren't really to add so many cards or even take many cards off the list, but they are to be able to put myself in a position to acquire something meaningful in the future. My collection is built by a monthly budget. Whatever is left goes towards the next month's. And I'm kind of thinking about cutting that in half and saving half and then spending half. So, not every card is ridiculously expensive on my list. I do have a 2010 Topps John Smoltz. That's definitely not a hard one to get. But if you're watching my channel, there'll probably be less 48 Bowmans of Stan Musials and more 1950 Bowman Earl Torgelsons that I share. Either way, I'm looking forward to what comes, and I'll enjoy the ride. This list isn't so I achieve it by the end of the year. It's many years in the making. It's to make sure I keep the focus. Thank you, Happy New Year, and enjoy your collection.